Voters hand Singapore's ruling party resounding election victory. Australia's Anthony Albanese wins his second term as Prime Minister. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mohanapriya and you're watching World Today. Voters have handed Singapore's long-time ruling party a landslide election victory, offering Prime Minister Lawrence Wong a clear mandate to navigate the Southeast Asian nation through economic upheaval sparked by looming US tariffs. Wong's People's Action Party took all but 10 seats in the 97-seat unicameral legislature, with a total of 65.57% of the more than 2.4 million votes cast in Saturday's polls. Hours after the official results were announced, Wong said the results will put Singapore in a better position to face the turbulent world, adding they were a clear signal of trust, stability and confidence in the government.
First election as Prime Minister and as Secretary General of the PAP. So it's been a very humbling experience working with all of you, interacting and engaging with all of you. We are grateful once again for your strong mandate, and we will honor it. We will honor the trust that you have given to us by working even harder for all of you.
Wong was facing his first major test against a rejuvenated opposition and had urged voters to offer him a strong show of support amid the global economic uncertainties brought on by US President Donald Trump's tough tariffs policy. The People's Action Party, which has steered the country to prosperity during its decades in power, was always expected to easily retain a clear majority in the legislature. Following the results of Singapore's general election, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has extended his warmest congratulations to Prime Minister Lawrence Wong on leading the People's Action Party to victory. He wished Wong and his team continued success as he carries forward the responsibilities of leadership in the new term. Noting that the prosperity and security of Malaysia and Singapore are indivisible, Datuk Seri Anwar said both countries are bound not only by geography, but also enduring ties of kith and kin. Over in Australia, Anthony Albanese has claimed a historic second term as Prime Minister in a dramatic comeback against once resurgent Conservatives that were powered by voters' concerns about the influence of US President Donald Trump. Now, the Australian Electoral Commission website projected Labor would win 80 of 150 seats in the House of Representatives, increasing its majority with 90% of polling places counted. Supporters at Labour's election party in Sydney cheered and hugged each other as Albanese claimed victory and said his party would form a majority government.
In this time of global uncertainty, Australians have chosen optimism and determination. Australians have chosen to face global challenges the Australian way, looking after each other while building for the future.
Albanese is the first Australian Prime Minister to win consecutive terms in 2 decades. He said Australians had voted for fairness and the strength to show courage in adversity and kindness to those in need. Meanwhile, Peter Dutton, leader of the Conservative Liberal Party, conceded defeat and the loss of his own seat, echoing the fate of Canada's Conservatives. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim congratulated his counterpart Albanese on securing a second term as Australia's Prime Minister following a spirited election campaign. In a Facebook post, Datuk Seri Anwar said the result, which was called so swiftly on election night, spoke volumes, a clear and confident verdict from the Australian people. He noted that Australia plays a pivotal role in the Asia-Pacific, and the Albanese government's attention to Southeast Asia during its first term did not go unnoticed. Datuk Seri Anwar hoped that such a spirit of engagement will continue. As ASEAN faces new tests and transformations, Datuk Seri Anwar said the region also looked forward to working together with Australia to uphold stability, enhance resilience, and shape a future of shared prosperity. Billionaire investor Warren Buffett has announced that he will retire from leading his Berkshire Hathaway business group at the end of the year. Buffett told the group's annual shareholder meeting that he would step down as chief executive at the close of 2025, handing over the reins to vice chairman Greg Abel, already known to be his anointed successor. Buffett added that the board of directors would be unanimously in favour of his recommendation. Abel, who has been the group's vice chairman since 2018, managing non-insurance operations, was named Buffett's expected successor as chief executive in 2021. But it was always assumed that he would not take over until after Buffett's death. Previously, 94-year-old Buffett, known as the Oracle of Omaha because of the influence he wields in business and financial circles, has always maintained he has no plans to retire. His decision to step down caps a remarkable 60-year run, during which he transformed Berkshire from a failing textile company into a $1.16 trillion conglomerate with liquid assets of $300 billion. According to Forbes magazine's real-time rich list, Buffett's net worth as of Saturday is $168.2 billion. Buffett pledged to keep his fortune invested in the company. China has denied it required companies to hand over data after TikTok was hit with a massive fine in the European Union for its handling of personal data. The social media giant was told to pay 530 million euros for transferring user data from Europe to China and for failing to guarantee it was shielded from access by Chinese authorities. The fine was the second largest ever imposed by the European Union following an investigation into the lawfulness of data transfers by TikTok. Chinese-owned TikTok said it would appeal the decision. China's foreign ministry said the country has never and will never require enterprises or individuals to collect or store data by illegal means. It also called on the European Union and Ireland, home to TikTok's European headquarters, to provide a fair, just and non-discriminatory business environment for enterprises of all countries. TikTok is a division of Chinese tech company ByteDance, but since its European headquarters is in Dublin, Ireland's Data Protection Commission is the lead regulator in Europe for the platform. The company has faced scrutiny in many countries over national security concerns that user data could be accessed by the Chinese government. Now, with the deadline fast approaching, U.S. Transportation Security Administration, TSA, has cautioned that passengers aged 18 or older who do not have a valid passport or real ID-compliant identification can expect to face delays, additional screening, and the possibility of not being permitted into the security checkpoint. Starting 7th May, TSA will begin enforcing long-delayed federal ID requirements at U.S. airports. The Real ID Act, passed by Congress in 2005 following a recommendation from the 9/11 Commission, sets minimum security standards for the issuance of driver licenses and other forms of identification. Although the law was enacted nearly 2 decades ago, implementation has been delayed repeatedly, most recently in December 2022, when and the deadline was pushed to May this year. Currently, TSA reports that 81% of travellers are presenting acceptable identification, including real ID-compliant state IDs and passports. The agency said it will continue to apply additional screening measures for those without compliant IDs until those documents no longer pose a security vulnerability. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem also noted that starting 7th May, a real ID or equivalent will be required to enter federal buildings, not just to board flights. Massive planned U.S. duties on solar panels made in Southeast Asia could be a chance for the region to ramp up its own long-stalled energy transition. Earlier this month, Washington announced plans for hefty duties on solar panels made in Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand. The levies follow an investigation launched before U.S. President Donald Trump took office into unfair practices in the countries, particularly by Chinese headquartered firms. If approved next month, they will pile upon tariffs already imposed by the Trump administration, including blanket 10% levies for most countries and 145% on Chinese-made goods. Managing Director at the Energy Shift Institute think tank, Putra Adiguna, said the new tariffs will practically make solar exports to U.S. impossible commercially. Many Chinese manufacturers shifted operations to Southeast Asia, hoping to avoid punitive measures imposed by Washington and the European Union as they try to protect and nurture domestic solar industries. Cut off from the U.S. market, the region could instead focus on local energy transitions, speeding green energy uptake locally, and driving a new market that could serve as a natural hedge against external volatility. Still ahead, Israel calls up thousands of reservists for Gaza offensive. Israel is issuing orders to call up tens of thousands of reservists ahead of an expanded offensive in Gaza. Several news outlets reported the army had begun sending the orders for reservists to replace conscripts and active duty soldiers in Israel and the occupied West Bank so they can be redeployed to Gaza. According to Israel's public broadcaster, the Security Cabinet is scheduled to meet today to approve the expansion of the military offensive in Gaza. Israel resumed major operations across Gaza on 18th March amid deadlock over how to proceed with a 2-month ceasefire reached in January that had largely halted the war. Efforts to secure a new deal, however, have appeared to stall in recent weeks. Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu has been increasingly vocal on his calls to continue the war since the restart of the Gaza offensive. The health ministry in Gaza said at least 2,396 people had been killed since Israel resumed its campaign in the territory, bringing the overall death toll from the war to at least 52,495. On a related note, thousands of Israelis gathered outside the Ministry of Defense in Tel Aviv, urging the Israeli government to prioritize the release of captives still held in Gaza instead of escalating military operations in the Palestinian territory. The demonstration was held as Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu's government authorized the mobilization of up to 60,000 reserve troops, signaling plans to intensify its assault on the besieged Palestinian enclave. Protesters held aloft placards castigating Netanyahu as a tyrant and a liar. Israeli government officials claim an expanded military offensive on Gaza will pressure Hamas into releasing the remaining captives, but critics argue it further endangers their lives. Ending the fleeting ceasefire, which saw Palestinian prisoners exchanged for Israeli captives earlier this year, has not led to any more releases. Meanwhile, United Nations Special Envoy Geir Pedersen has urged Israel to halt its attacks on Syria at once after it carried out multiple airstrikes targeting the authorities following sectarian violence this week. Fresh Israeli raids were reported overnight after Israel said its forces stood ready to protect the Druze minority after sectarian clashes killed 119 people. Pedersen said he strongly condemns Israel's continued and escalating violations of Syria's sovereignty, including multiple airstrikes in Damascus and other cities, calling for the attacks to cease at once. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said more than 20 strikes hit military targets across Syria late Friday in the heaviest assault carried out by Israel on its neighbor this year. Local media, meanwhile, reported strikes near Damascus and in the country's center, west and south, saying at least one civilian was killed. The barrage followed an Israeli attack near the presidential palace in Damascus early on Friday. Since the collapse of the Bashar al-Assad government late last year, Israeli troops have entered the UN-patrolled buffer zone on the Golan Heights and have carried out incursions deeper into southern Syria. West Asia analyst Andreas Krieg said Israel is using the Druze issue as some sort of pretext to justify their military occupation of parts of Syria. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dismissed a three-day truce ordered by Russian leader Vladimir Putin as theatrics, but said Kiev is ready for a full ceasefire. Moscow said the truce, set to coincide with its World War II commemorations on 9th of May, was aimed at testing Kiev's readiness for long-term peace. The Kremlin rejected an unconditional 30-day ceasefire proposed by Kiev and Washington in March, and Putin has since offered little to end the three-year conflict. Zelensky said this is more of a theatrical performance on Putin's part because in 2 or 3 days it is impossible to develop a plan for this next steps to end the war. He also said Ukraine will not be playing games to create a pleasant atmosphere to allow for Putin's exit from isolation on the 9th of May. He noted that some countries had approached Kiev to warn they were traveling to Russia and had requested safety. Russia, meanwhile, jumped on the comments, accusing Kiev of making a direct threat to the commemorations. At least 7 people have been killed and another 20 injured in an attack on a town in South Sudan as fears grow that the world's youngest nation will relapse into an all-out civil war. The medical charity Doctors Without Borders said in a statement that it strongly condemned the deliberate bombing of its hospital in Olfanga and that the attack destroyed the last remaining functioning hospital and pharmacy there in the north of the country. The agency further said the attack was a clear violation of international law. It was not immediately clear why the facility was targeted. Maman Mustafa, head of mission with Doctors Without Borders in South Sudan, said his team on the ground reported 2 helicopter gunships attacking the hospital. Mustafa said the helicopters bombed the facility and its medical supplies, then continued shelling the town of Olfanga for around 30 minutes. Mustafa also said the civilian population fled the town and the situation there was quite horrific and catastrophic. He added there are reports of more fatalities and wounded in the community. According to several witnesses, additional attacks took place hours later near a market in Olfanga, causing widespread panic and displacement of civilians. Coming up next in sports, Al Ahly claim AFC Champions League elite title. The national women's hockey squad wants to ensure that the tour series in China is best used as a platform to form strong combinations ahead of their Two Nations Cup scheduled to take place from the 16th to 22nd June in Warsaw, Poland. Team head coach Mohammad Nasihin Nubli Ibrahim said the tour series was the second international assignment this year after the series of friendly matches against South Africa last February. For Mohammad Nasihin, it is not just about winning and losing, but he wanted to see everyone's commitment and determination, as this is an opportunity for the players to prove their abilities. He also hoped to see fighting spirit from the players, how the players adapt quickly in the match and not be afraid to make mistakes, while also quickly learning from those mistakes. Mohammad Nasihin stressed that the tactical aspect is a priority in the tour series, while hoping that the young players can learn quickly and gain as much experience as possible in China. The Malaysian Tigress will depart for China tomorrow for 7 friendlies against Liaoning province, as well as training sessions arranged by the coaching staff. The first friendly match will take place on 7th of May, followed by 8th May, and then on 10th and 11th May, followed by 13th and 15th May. They will conclude the tour series on the 17th of May before returning home the next day. Al Ahly have been crowned champions of Asia at the third attempt after the Saudi Arabian side overpowered Japan's Kawasaki Frontale 2-0 in Jeddah early this morning. Now, with the win, Roberto Firmino, Eduard Mendy and Riyad Mahrez become the first players to capture both Asian club football's premier title and its European equivalent. The Jeddah club, runners-up in 1986 and 2012, always looked the more dangerous. And on 35 minutes, Firmino rolled a pass to winger Galeno, who curled a spectacular effort from 25 yards into the top corner. 3 minutes before halftime, Firmino floated across into the Frontale 6-yard box for Frank Cassie to power home his header and double Al Ahly's advantage. The assist lifted Firmino, the club captain, to 7 in this season's Champions League, and to 1 behind Mahrez at the top of the tournament's assist charts. Frontale, who defeated Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nassr in the semi-final, did not have a shot on target in the opening 45 minutes. In the second half, Firmino and Mahrez each flashed efforts well wide, with the former substituted on for 74 minutes to rapturous applause. Not long after, Frontale substitute Tatsuya Ito fired 2 shots in quick succession, inches off target. In the end, Al Ahly celebrated becoming only the 3rd Saudi club to win the Champions League, after record 4-time winners Al Hilal and 2-time champions Al Ittihad. Meanwhile, Barcelona extended the gap atop La Liga to 7 points with a 2-1 comeback win at relegated Real Valladolid, thanks to second-half strikes by Rafinha and Fermin Lopez. Valladolid took a surprise lead after 6 months when Ivan Sanchez latched onto Raul Moro's through ball and fired a deflected cross into the far post past Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who was making his return after a 7-month injury absence. Barcelona's attempts to respond to going a goal down before the break were thwarted by Andre Pereira's fine goalkeeping, with the Portuguese denying Ansu Fati and Lopez as the visitors struggled for rhythm. Hansi Flick's men found their groove after the interval though, with substitute Rafinha curling a delightful half volley into the bottom corner in the 54th minute after Ferreira parried Lamine Yamal's cross. Lopez completed the turnaround on the hour mark, firing home from distance after a clinical pass from Gerard Martin. Following the victory, Barca have 79 points ahead of second-placed Real Madrid, who host Celta Vigo later today. And on to tennis, world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka overcame a second-set fight-back from 4th seed Coco Gauff to secure a 6-3, 7-6 win and clinch her 3rd Madrid Open title. A dominant Sabalenka won 4 games straight without conceding a point to build a 4-1 lead in the first set. And while former US Open champion Gauff battled back with a break to make it 4-2, the Belarusian secured the set with another break. Gauff broke Sabalenka to go 2-1 up in the second set and held under pressure to build a 5-3 lead before double fault woes, while serving for the set allowed Sabalenka to break back and make it 5-all before winning the title in a tie break. Sabalenka recorded her tour-leading 31st victory on Madrid clay, adding the WTA 1000 trophy to titles in Brisbane and Miami. She pulled level at 5-all with Gauff head-to-head and matched Petra Kvitova's record of 3 Women's Madrid Open titles. Coming up in our offbeat segment, check World of Warcraft fans battle in forest. After Mat Kilau Kebangkitan Pahlawan made Silat phenomenon in 2023, another martial arts-based film is set to hit the cinemas on the 8th of May. Gayong, an action periodic film directed by the acclaimed Faisal Isha, features a gripping storytelling about the late Datuk Mior Abdul Rahman, Grandmaster and founder of Silat Gayong Malaysia. This film brings together a stellar lineup of local acting talents, including Beto Kushari, Nabila Huda, Shafi Naswib and Yayan Ruhian. Interestingly, Beto takes on the lead role as the late Datuk Mior Abdul Rahman, delivering a heartfelt performance that stirs the soul and awakens the warrior spirit within.
Kelainan filem ini bukan sekadar filem aksi. Ianya ada drama, ianya ada rasa, ianya ada semangat dan ianya juga adalah untuk mengangkat tokoh Silat Gayong iaitu pengasas Datuk Mior Abdul Rahman.
Another cast of Gayong said her role demanded a tough physical training and a deep understanding of the character, spirit and silat movements.
Saya belajar banyak benda-benda baru dalam filem Gayong ni, terutama sekali saya diberi peluang untuk bersilat yang saya tak pernah buat pun dekat skrin yang besar.
Produced by Soul Pictures Sendirian Berhad, Gayong promises to be a landmark in Malaysian cinema. More than just a martial arts epic, Gayong is a tribute to the legacy of a Silat warrior who dedicated his life to preserving and passing down the ancient tradition to future generations. Dressed in elaborate costumes as various fantasy characters, Czech fans of the role-playing game World of Warcraft hacked and slashed at each other with foam weapons in a forest last weekend. Organizer Michael Danak said the event, a live-action role-play, drew around 150 people to battle and go on quests as their favorite characters from the game over 2 days. Participants could choose to dress up as the traditional fantasy races of humans, elves, dwarves, orcs and the undead, as well as humanoid bulls, wolves and pandas unique to the game's setting. According to the Guinness World Records, World of Warcraft is the best-selling multiplayer online role-playing game, with more than 40 million copies sold since its initial release in 2004. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, voters hand Singapore's ruling party resounding election victory. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Mohana Priya. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.